Contrary to the diabolical narcissism programmed into modern minds on a daily basis from 1,000 sources, reality does not require our approval. As for Sedevacantists, Sedevacantists are simply those who accept reality, the manifest reality spitting in our faces daily. Reality doesn't change just because we don't like it or because it poses difficulties. The reality of Antipope Francis and the Novus Ordo Antichurch he leads is upon us, whether we like it or not, and regardless of whatever difficulties it poses. It's simply reality. Let us not join this mad world in its war against reality, which flows from its war against truth, which in turn flows from its war against God. The modern world and those conformed to it are at war against God. Therefore, they're at war against the natural order. They're at war against truth itself. They're at war against fetal infants and so on, and so on, and so on. They have a death wish, a will to total annihilation. What we're seeing today is the fruit of decades and indeed centuries of poisonous thought in the form of poisonous theology, poisonous philosophy, and so on. If you would understand this nihilism, or nihilism if you like, there is no greater diagnostician of nihilism than Dostoevsky. Read the novels of Dostoevsky. Immerse yourself, particularly in Crime and Punishment, Demons or Devils, and The Brothers Karamazov. All translated by Richard Pivere and his wife. I believe her name is Larissa, and she has retained her Russian last name. I think it's Voronsky, something like that. As for getting real, really real, and accepting the foul reality of Antipope Francis and the Novus Ordo Antichurch he leads, I urge you, read these following 2 entries over at the superb Novus Ordo Watch site. First, this one, A Church Without Popes Forever? Response to an inquiring writer at 1 Peter 5. As you may know, 1 Peter 5 is a recognize and resist site. At the moment, they continue to have their heads firmly buried in the sand about present reality. Also see this one, Playing It Safe. Kennedy Hall and the Sedevacantist Wager. Kennedy Hall is also a recognize and resistor. These people, I am convinced, are of goodwill, yet they're mired in error. Do see these essays. They're linked below this video. Be not afraid. Be not afraid to get real. Really real. Behold, Antipope Francis, the most public heretic in the history of the world, one of the most evil men ever to walk the earth, making the likes of Stalin, Mao, and Hitler seem like small-time, petty neighborhood thugs in comparison. For Francis is leading millions upon tens of millions upon hundreds of millions of souls to eternal hell. Be not deceived by his false gospel. Be not deceived by his sugary words and his false humility. If you follow this man, you will end up in hell. One cannot simultaneously follow Francis and practice actual Catholicism. The two are mutually exclusive. To the extent that anyone in the Novus Ordo Antichurch is saved, it's because they're not following Francis. It's because they're defying Francis somehow. But the likelihood of their defiance diminishes the longer they stay yoked with Antipope Francis and the Novus Ordo Antichurch he leads. Actual Catholics before the Judas Council, before Vatican II, would not recognize this man as a Catholic. And there's nothing virtuous about recognizing him as a Catholic. Many timid souls speak of the dangers of not following a pope, but they don't speak of the dangers about following a false pope. And those who have eyes to see and ears to hear know that by following this man, You are not following the true gospel of Christ. You are not following the vicar of Christ. It's no accident that this man has renounced the title of Vicar of Christ. Just think about that. Did you ever dream that you would live in a time of a man whom the world sees as a pope, who claims to be a pope, and yet who has renounced the title of Vicar of Christ? That alone tells you what you need to know about this man. And so I urge you, if you seek to be an actual Catholic, if you seek to follow actual Catholicism, you cannot follow this man. Again, his attack on the actual Catholic Mass is not an accident. Just think about that. Did you ever dream that a man claiming to be Pope would attack the actual Roman Rite? And yet this attack, this diabolical attack, has been met with mere murmurs from those few today who still embrace actual Catholicism. We've become desensitized to all of the things these papal pretenders since Vatican II have done and said. We need to resensitize. We need to rediscover a sense of holy horror about what these men have said and done. For example, what John Paul II did at the 1986 Assisi event. Blasphemy. Utterly scandalous what he did at Assisi. Not to mention all of the other things he said and did. Beginning with his first encyclical, preaching the heresy of universalism, and thus leading millions to hell. We must resensitize. This bovine, brutal age has desensitized us to every kind of horror. And yet so many profess horror at all of these school shootings. But these pale in comparison to the horror of what these papal pretenders have done by leading millions upon tens of millions upon hundreds of millions of souls to hell.